why don't we start with Miss Charles? Can you tell us a little bit about GW?
Of course. So hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here in this virtual space with y'all today. A little bit about GW. We are a private research institution in Washington, D.C. We're located about 4 blocks away from the White House and about 4 blocks away from the Kennedy Center of Performing Arts and about 4 blocks away from the National Mall. So really in the heart of everything that you need as a college student, whether it be arts and culture or political experience or just some time to go to the mall and do some homework, maybe practice for your next rugby match, whatever it might be. There are 4 things that we really emphasize about our students and what they'll have the opportunities to do, and those are research, internships, study abroad, and community service. So we really try and make sure that regardless of where our students are coming from or what their major might be, or even what their financial background might be, they're able to participate in all 4 of those areas if they choose to, and how they choose to as well. So we'll have some students that will study abroad for 1.5 years. We'll have some students that start doing research during their first semester with us. We'll have some students that will do a senior internship that leads to a job offer. And we have students that will serve for all 4 years our DC community. We think it's really important to get to know your neighborhood and get to know the environment that you're living in, which is why we place such an emphasis on community service. And we actually start every student's first week on campus with that introduction to community service. Will serve as a whole, as an entire first-year class, which is a really amazing experience and allows our students to get to know a neighborhood that's not just Foggy Bottom where we're located. We also have over 500 different student organizations. Our total undergraduate student body is around 11,000 students, so we definitely have a lot of options to choose from, including an Iranian Student Association. So you can definitely find organizations that have to do with who you are, your culture, your background, your heritage, but also things around dance and knitting and many other kinds of student organizations, whether it be newspaper or sports. We are a D1 school, part of the Atlantic 10 Conference, so we have a lot of opportunities in terms of playing sports at the D1 level, but also on club and intramural levels as well. So no matter where you are in that sports hierarchy, you can definitely find that outlet. So that's a little bit on who we are. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you for that. Next, why don't we go to Miss Brown? Can you tell us a little bit about Northeastern?
Sure, can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. I plugged my headphones in and sometimes it can be a little touchy. So I will just start by saying that we are quite similar to GW, and we actually do a lot of travel and teamwork with the GW. So they're kind of one of our friend schools. So there are a lot of similarities between the 2 institutions. And for Northeastern, we are a little bit bigger. So we're about 18,000 undergraduate students. We are located right in the heart of Boston, which is great. One of the things I love about Northeastern is that although we are a city campus, we still have kind of the traditional feel of a college university with over 50 acres of green space and trees and all of those things you might think of when you think of a traditional college campus. Similarly to GW, we are very much focused on the idea of experiential learning and taking what you are learning in the classroom, applying it to the real world, and then having that real world experience come back into the classroom and further inform your academic experience. Oh, is my mic working? No? It is? Okay. Someone just chatted that their mic's not working. So similarly to GW, we have a variety of study abroad options, very focused on community service, civic engagement, and being active global citizens. Northeastern is also a Tier 1 research institution, and our research building on campus was actually just named the most beautiful building in Boston. I would argue that the inside is beautiful. The outside is your opinion of what you think it looks like. But it's a really fascinating building. It's the Interdisciplinary Science and Engineering Research Center. It looks like a spaceship, essentially. It's pretty cool. So lots of areas for exploration there. We do offer internships at Northeastern, but really the mark of Northeastern is our co-op program, which is a 6-month full-time employment opportunity that is offered to students. We can chat a little bit more about this later when we talk about unique programming to Northeastern, but students can graduate Northeastern with up to 18 months of full-time work experience. Over half of our students receive job offers from one of their previous employers that they worked with while they were on co-op. Co-ops are paid opportunities, and you do not pay tuition while you're on co-op. So it's actually a way to make some money, pause their college payments, get some real world experience, and then come back into the classroom when you're ready. I just want to also follow up by saying that Northeastern has one of the highest percentages of international students and students from outside the United States, so we are really a global hub. It's our goal that every student at Northeastern has some kind of experience outside of the US, but it's actually about a fifth of our student body that does not identify as a US citizen. So we do have a lot of people from different backgrounds coming onto our campus.
Great, thank you so much. Can we move on to Ms. Chernia to talk about Dickinson a little bit?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I am Rebecca Chernia with Dickinson College. Dickinson is a small liberal arts college located in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. We have a little over 2,300 students on campus, which I've heard sometimes that's a small school, sometimes it's a medium school, so I just go with schmedium. You know, that's a real word now. So we are located, like I said, in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. That town is home to about 20,000 people. And it's going to be about a 2-hour drive away from where you guys are located in Maryland. And you don't have to go on 95, which I think is the biggest win of all when you have to drive to school. And as a liberal arts college, we have a very unique history that I actually always like to share. So Dickinson was the first college created in the newly formed United States. That was not a coincidence, that actually was by design. So our founder, Benjamin Rush, was tasked with creating a new type of higher education, different from the European system, to educate new leaders for this brand new country. So Benjamin Rush was a very interesting person, definitely not perfect, but he was fairly progressive for his time. He was a physician in Philadelphia, heavily involved in the abolitionist movement, focused on women's rights, and a very big interest in global perspectives. So a lot of his beliefs about education, the things that he values, we see in Dickinson today. So as a liberal arts college, we have about 45 different majors to choose from, across a variety of disciplines. And there's also minors and certificate programs that you can pick from as well. The two things that I really want to highlight just in this very quick rundown is our focus on global perspectives. So a unique thing about the Dickinson education experience, which I really haven't seen at too many other schools, is that no matter what our students are studying, we want you to pursue a second language in college. We think that's a key tenet of being a true global citizen, is your ability to speak more than just English. So for all of our students, we're going to look to get you to at least the intermediate level of a secondary language. If you want to study something with international in the title, you're going to go even higher than that. Despite our small size, we have a very mighty foreign language department. We have 13 languages, to choose from. So if you want to continue studying maybe what you're studying in school, or you want to try something different, you absolutely can. We also have a very big study abroad department. So about 65% of our students will study abroad, and if you compare that to the national average of about 10%, we're doing really, really well. We also have very high percentages of science majors and student athletes studying abroad as well, and historically those are two very underrepresented populations in abroad programs. Combining Dickinson programs and partner programs, we have over 50 study abroad options for students to choose from all around the world. They can range from programs that are a semester to a year long, and we do have some short-term attachment programs in there as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to focus on is sustainability. Dickinson is very, very committed to sustainability. The topic is woven through our curriculum. No matter what you're studying, we think every student should be able to view their field through a sustainable lens. So we are very excited. We achieved our goal of gaining carbon neutrality in 2020, which we are super excited about. We also manage our own farm as well. So this is a very cool experience for students. Even if you're not necessarily interested in pursuing a degree in agriculture or food science or anything like that, it is a really cool thing to see and to be a part of. So all of this does culminate. We have fantastic outcomes for all of our students. Basically, everyone is doing something within a year of graduation. So I think that truly is a testament to the Dickinson education experience.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mr. Cruz, will you tell us a little bit about Virginia Tech?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hopefully, we can answer any questions that you all may have for us later on. A little bit about Virginia Tech. We were founded in 1872. We were founded as an all-military, all-male, all-Virginia institution. That's not necessarily the case anymore. We do still hold to that tradition, that is the Corps Cadets. So any of you are interested in being part of the Corps Cadets and later on pursuing a career in the military, we still have that option. We have around 1,200 students that are part of the Corps Cadets, but overall on our campus, we have around 36,000 students pursuing, we have over 110 different majors and over 200 different concentrations and minors that we offer at Virginia Tech across 8 different colleges. We also do have a med school and a vet school. If that's something that you're interested in pursuing. We do have a lot of research opportunities. We are the largest research institution in the state of Virginia. So definitely a lot of resources to connect with faculty and staff members. We are tier 1 research institution, so we definitely have those resources for sure. We do have study abroad opportunities in all 7 continents, as well as internships and co-op opportunities as well. Our motto is something that we hold dear to our heart, which is Ut Prosim, which is Latin for that I may serve. Service plays a huge component of who we are as a community and as an institution at Virginia Tech, and we try to incorporate that service piece into the work that you do inside the classroom, but also into the work that you do outside the classroom. Other things about Virginia Tech, we have over 900 different clubs and organizations that you could be a part of. We are consistently within the top 5 in the nation when it comes to best college food. And that's because we have our own dairy farm, we have our own cattle. So you exactly know where your food is coming from, and it's typically very fresh as well. And other things about Virginia Tech is we truly put emphasis on your overall experience as a student. We want to make sure that every student that comes to Virginia Tech and after they leave Virginia Tech have a well-rounded experience. And that means making sure that you're well off academically, but also being taken care of outside the classroom. We want to make sure that your mental health is something that is a priority of us for sure. About Virginia Tech, we do have a holistic review. And what it means to us is that we put a heavy emphasis on the academics and the personal side. With the academics specifically looking at what classes you had taken from 9th to 12th grade. So making sure you demonstrate the academic rigor by either taking those AP, IB, dual enrollment, or even honors classes. We review students based on your school profile, meaning that if your high school does not offer a particular course, that will not be held against you in the review process. When it comes to the personal side, we don't require the Common App or the coalition essay. The only writing portion that we're going to be looking for is going to be your responses to 4 short personal statements. And those 4 short personal statements are relating to some of the values that we hold in our community, such as service. We want to know what are your personal goals. We want to know about resilience, and last but not least, leadership experiences that you have had. And each of those responses are no more than 120 words max each. So in reality, your college essay to Virginia Tech is a total of 480 words. Other than that, we want to make sure that students are able to have, like I mentioned earlier, a well-rounded experience at Virginia Tech. We want to make sure that we have as many available resources to all of our students. And that will conclude my presentation right now, and hopefully you all can be part of the Hokie Nation.
Great, thank you so much. I've learned a lot already. So I have 2 questions that I'll ask each of the panelists, and we'll begin with Ms. Charles again. So my first question is, what is a program or major that is unique to GW?
So I think one that is unique, maybe, but I'd like to talk about because it's new for us, is a cognitive neuroscience major. And it came out from student interest saying we really want to have this major. So we have an option for students to design their own major. And it was designed so many times that we decided to set it in stone, give it a faculty advisor, and create it as a major, which I think just shows how cool our students are and how forward thinking they are as well. And then we're just most known for international affairs. It's what we do. We're next to the White House. We're in metro distance from the Capitol. IA is our bread and butter.
That's very exciting. My second question is, I would like you to elaborate a little bit on what test optional means at GW, and maybe tell us a little bit about in what situation a student with test scores should submit them.
Of course. So GW has been test optional since 2015. So we've been doing this in higher ed years a long time. And so for us, test optional means that it really is up to you to determine whether or not you want your scores to be a part of your application to us. So we do a holistic review, which means we look at every single component of your application before determining whether or not you're a good fit for us and we're a good fit for you. And so if you decide that, you know what, I love my test scores, they really complement everything else I'm submitting, you're more than welcome to send them in. But if you don't have testing because of COVID, if you don't feel like your test scores are a good representation of your academic success, you don't need to submit them. At GW, it will not impact any kind of scholarship money that you might otherwise be awarded. It won't impact your ability to get in. Every year, about a third of our students who apply test optional, and they are admitted at the exact same rate as students who aren't. So again, it really is about you crafting your admissions package to us. And that includes things like writing strong essays and being elaborate in your activities so we know exactly what you're doing. But yeah, test scores are just a factor that we can consider if you want us to.
Thank you so much. I will go to Ms. Brown now, and I'll ask you the same question. So first, can you tell us about a program or major that's unique to Northeastern? I know that you talked a little bit about the co-op program, so maybe if you want to go more in depth about that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, the co-op is a 6-month full-time employment experience that is offered to our students. We have had the co-op for over 100 years and firmly believe that we were the first to have the co-op, although there is another institution out there that claims they were also the first, so we'll leave that up to you to decide. But essentially what happens is after your first year at Northeastern, you are eligible to go out on a co-op, which means you are eligible to take this 6-month period of time to work full-time. You're not in classes, you're not doing homework. We have about 3,000 co-op partners around the world that we partner with, and every year we have several thousand students going out on co-op. Before you go out and co-op, you take a prep class to get your resume together, your cover letter written to introduce you to your co-op advisor who will be with you the whole time, and to help you navigate our database of careers that might be a good fit for you to help you narrow down what you might like. So after you land your co-op, you go through a legitimate job search process. You spend 6 months doing your co-op, working full-time. There's a lot of reflection in conversations with your co-op advisor during that time. And then you come back to campus, and as I mentioned, you can do this up to 3 times. So what's great about this process is it allows you to start networking really early. As I mentioned, over 50% of our students receive job offers from previous co-op employers, so it's such a great way to get your foot in the door professionally. But I think the most important, the biggest value I see in the co-op program is that it allows you to actually figure out what you like and what you're good at and what you want to do with your life, and then come back and reevaluate, reassess, talk to people in your community to figure out what might be a better fit if you realize first co-op was not what you want to do. And so I really appreciate that we give you that kind of safety net to play around and figure out what's going to be the best fit for your future while you're still in college, rather than landing your first job and saying, ooh, I really don't know what it is that I want to do. I have no idea. So it does just provide a lot of support. A majority of our co-ops are in Boston, but we actually offer co-ops on all 7 continents. Things do, of course, look a little different right now, but we still have maintained about 3/4 of our typical co-op placement options, even through COVID. So we are still able to have students doing remote co-ops or working in safe conditions for co-ops as well. And so because this is such a foundational element, obviously things have changed a little bit, but we still offer this opportunity for our students.
I have a question about the co-op. So does the number of co-ops you do affect the time at which you graduate?
Yeah, great question. So if you do 3 co-ops, you will likely be on a 5-year track. However, students can do up to 2 co-ops and graduate in 4 years. We essentially operate on kind of a year-round system. So if you are on co-op in the first cycle, which is January to June, you can then be on campus, take a summer course for a month or so, kind of a quick hit of that course, and get credit. And then we also take credit for AP, IB, and those kinds of, dual enrollment. And so a lot of students are A, coming in with credit, and B, they're able to take courses over the summer or in between other break times because our scheduling is so flexible. If staying on that 4-year track is really important, that's the most common. But if you talk to Northeastern students, you're likely to hear that one is a 5th year. It doesn't mean they stayed behind for any reason. It just usually means that in their junior year, they decided I could use 6 months more of co-op experience, and they've tacked that on to their time.
Thank you. So my second question is about what test optional means at Northeastern, and what situation a student would be in where they have test scores and are considering submission.
Yeah, it's a great question. And so I would preface by saying, just retweet everything Bree said initially. I just want to make the caveat that, this is the first year Northeastern has been test optional. Myself and many of my colleagues have been asking for this for a long time, so we are thrilled that we can finally be there. But to be completely honest, we are still figuring out what this means for us. I don't think it's a secret that Northeastern has cared about test scores in the past and looked at this pretty closely as part of a student's application. But that doesn't mean that we're going to penalize students for not sending the scores. Again, it is really your choice, and we know that oftentimes you have no control over whether tests were canceled, if you could make it to the testing center, if you had a ton of stuff going on in your life. And I also firmly believe that the SAT does not measure your ability to have success in college, but that's my own personal belief. So we have always been a holistic application review, as Mario explained about Virginia Tech as well. So we are looking at all those pieces and parts. I would say if you're thinking about sending a test score to Northeastern, look at our past 50%. They're pretty high. So our average SAT was a 1470 to 1550, and our average ACT is a 33 to 35. Now, that's the average. I have certainly seen students with very different scores than that be admitted. And I have also seen students with perfect scores not get admitted because they didn't have strong community involvement or strong recommendation letters. So it really is all those other factors. So I would say if you feel like you're within that range, great. If not, I would say focus on the other elements of your application. And personally for me, I am more interested in your community involvement and what your teachers say about you rather than what you score on the ACT.
And I have one more question about being test optional. So at Northeastern, will students still be able to qualify for any kind of scholarship if they, okay.
Yep. And we, for example, we have never looked at test scores for international students, and all of our international school students are still eligible and have received merit scholarships. So we're just going to kind of copy that practice over to our domestic students who do not submit testing.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I will move on to Ms. Chernia next. So I'll ask you the same question. What is a program or major that's unique to Dickinson? I know that you also talked about the requirement to take a second language. Could you elaborate on that or tell us about another program?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I would like to say that we do, for majors, we offer both anthropology and archaeology as an undergraduate degree. So the anthropology itself, that one's not super duper unique, but the archaeology as an undergrad degree is far more unique. It's a really cool program. We have some excellent faculty involved with that one. There is a dig site simulator on campus that we can let our students actually practice in before we send you off to a real dig site where you'll work with priceless artifacts. So our students get some absolutely fantastic hands-on experience before even like the real hands-on experience. And having those opportunities, of course, looks amazing if you do decide that you want to go on and pursue a graduate degree in archaeology or something like that. And then just the other two programs I'd like to highlight is our connection with some of the other education institutions located in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. So we have a security studies certificate, which is in partnership with the Army War College, which is a very intense sounding name, and it is a pretty intense program, but basically you can think of that as the premier graduate institution for career military in the Army. So it's really cool that our students are able to kind of have access to those resources and those individuals. And then the other one is that we do have a certificate program with the Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet, which is one of the premier ballet conservatory experiences in the country. So that's a really cool way for our students who are very dedicated to ballet, if they want to continue that in some aspect in college without actually studying professional ballet or a dance program, that's a really cool opportunity that they have.
And my second question is about it's about being test optional. So I know that Dickinson has been test optional for quite a while. What does test optional mean for Dickinson, and how will that affect students this year?
Yeah, so loved everything that GW and Northeastern said. So I think a lot of that applies to Dickinson as well. So we have been test optional since 1995. So very long time. Our office is incredibly comfortable with reviewing test optional applications. And just like GW and Northeastern said, we are looking at all those other elements of your application to get a better picture of you. So it's really not a big deal at all if the student doesn't submit test scores. We can, of course, still consider them for admission and for merit scholarships as well. As far as students who would maybe, try and decide if they do want to submit test scores or not, my recommendation is if you're falling somewhere, at least touching like the middle 50%, at least at Dickinson, that would be a good time to submit your test scores. But otherwise, then I would say, don't worry about it. And obviously that middle 50% number is going to vary from school to school. So you could possibly find yourself in a situation where you're sending your scores to some schools and not to others. And that's also totally fine. Like, we don't know who you sent your test scores to. We're not going to feel left out because you didn't send them to us. So you do definitely have some options, and not a big deal if you don't send test scores.
Great, thank you so much. And finally, we will move on to Mr. Cruz. I'll again ask you the same questions. So can you tell us about a program or a major that's unique to Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so a lot of people have the misconception that we're like a STEM focused school, that all that we do is engineering, which is not necessarily the case, right? We have 8 different colleges, and one of the majors that I'm going to be talking about is going to be architecture. Architecture at Virginia Tech is a very unique program. It's a 5-year program, and that's because after you complete architecture, you're actually certified to go straight to the field, as opposed to going to grad school. For our architecture program, we do not require a portfolio to be submitted. It is all based on your academics and what you had done from 9th to 12th grade academically. And the cool thing about our architecture program is that it is a very collaborative environment. And what I mean by that is that everyone is sharing the same working space. So when you walk into our architecture building at Virginia Tech, it is all in the same first floor. And so in one corner, you have the first year students. In the second corner, you have all second year students. In the third corner, you have all the third year students. And on the other corner, in the last one, you have all the 5th year students. So it's a very collaborative environment, and you actually get to see what students are working on each year. And you may ask yourself, well, where do the 4th year students go? Typically, on your 4th year in our architecture program, students are not on campus. They're either completing a year-long co-op opportunity either in the United States or in abroad. In countries like France, Italy, or Spain, for example, or working with an architecture firm in New York, in Washington, D.C., or even Chicago. So it's a very unique program to Virginia Tech. It's probably one of our most nationally recognized programs that we have as well, that doesn't really get all the glory and lights as engineering does, but it's something that really makes us unique in a way.
Is the co-op only available for students who are majoring in architecture, or will students in other majors also be able to do co-ops?
Yeah, so co-op opportunities are available to all students regardless of their major. It just more so for architecture is already built in the program, where students in other majors may have to look for those opportunities, and they don't have any limitations. They can look for co-op opportunities as early as the end of the freshman year, sophomore year, senior year, versus in architecture, it is specifically built in to take part in their fourth year in the program.
Great. And I will move to my second question about COVID. So can you tell us a little bit more about what test optional means at Virginia Tech, and maybe explain a situation where a student would want to submit a test score to Virginia Tech?
Yeah, no, I think we're in a similar boat with Northeastern, in the sense that this is our first year that we're actually going test optional. And so for us, when it comes to being test optional, and what it means to us is it is up to you whether you're comfortable or not to submit an SAT or ACT. If you, however, decide to submit an ACT or ACT, it will be taken into consideration when we're reviewing your application. If you do not submit one, that will not be held against you in the review process, because we completely understand that your test date may have gotten canceled because of COVID. Other students may not be able to take the test, or don't feel comfortable going out and taking the test, right? So we want to be as flexible as possible during these times. So if you do not submit a test score to Virginia Tech, that will not be held against you in the review process, and it will not impact any scholarships or financial aid opportunities that typically are offered to our students.
Great, thank you so much. So now I'll open the floor to anyone who has any questions regarding general advice about the application process or a particular school. I just ask that you please write your questions in the chat box. Oh, looks like we already have. So someone is asking, I think this is a question for all 4 schools, if college tours will be available in the next 4 weeks. I'm not sure if they mean virtual or in person, but maybe you guys can speak to both.
I'll start. We'll go in the same order. So at GW, you won't be able to visit in person this fall. As staff, we are not allowed on campus this fall, and therefore we can't bring on visitors, just to make sure that the few students we have remaining on campus for this fall are as safe as possible. So instead, we're doing a whole lot of virtual engagements, and that looks like open houses and trivia nights, as well as information sessions that are specific to GW as a whole, but also go into depth on our first year living and learning communities. So we have a lot of ways to get to know us, but none of it will really be on campus for this fall, which we're really upset about, but we also recognize the unique circumstances the world is in right now. So check out our website.
All right, well, I wasn't listed in the question, but I'll still share in case anyone else is curious about Northeastern's opportunities. So we are functioning at a very, very limited and I would say informal capacity. So if we're not taking appointments, we're not having large scale information sessions, but every day our visitor center is technically open, and we will have 2 to 3 staff members and a couple current students there to chat with families, answer questions, show families around. There are no formal tours. And we are requiring that everyone wears masks, everyone is socially distant, there was no contact at all. And so essentially it's really been for people who kind of find themselves in the area or want to stop by campus, they have someone they can talk to. So technically, yes, you could walk around campus, you could talk to someone, you can see what's going on as of right now, but it is by no means the traditional on-campus experience, and very few of our staff members are actually going on to campus because we are a place that's relying on things like public transportation. So I, for example, will not be going to campus at all this fall, and that there are a couple opportunities there, as well as, I'm sure with everyone, a host of virtual options as well.
Great. And then Ms. Chernia, do you want to talk a little bit about the Dickinson touring that's available?
Yeah, because I think this actually is working really well, because I think it just shows truly how nuanced the visit experience is going to be this fall. So much like GW, our focus is very heavy on virtual. So we're still doing our general information sessions, which we have current students join us for, as well as specialty sessions. But then we are doing a very, 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 very limited number of in-person visits. So unlike Northeastern, you do have to make an appointment. You cannot just show up to campus on your own. So definitely read the websites closely when you're making these visits. So you will make an appointment with us, and it's just going to be a one-on-one, basically entirely outdoor tour of campus. So since we are just doing one-on-one, so you get a very personalized experience, which is cool, but we can just accommodate a fraction of the people that we used to be able to accommodate. So if you are interested in Dickinson and coming up to campus, definitely keep an eye on that section of our visit calendar, because the dates truly fill up just basically as soon as we release them. So yeah, keep an eye on that, but definitely take advantage of those virtual sessions too.
Great, thank you so much. And Mr. Cruz, can you talk to us a little bit about the touring process at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, no, definitely. At the moment, we don't have, or we don't offer any in-person tours. We do have on our website, if you go to vt.edu/admissions, we do have pre-recorded information sessions, but you can also schedule a virtual information session plus a tour that's given by one of our Hokie ambassadors, which is a current student. You can also schedule a virtual information sessions with different representatives from different of our colleges, for sure. So that's what we're doing right now. In regards of in the future, maybe we're exploring the possibility of having students on, visitors on campus later on in the fall. So just stay tuned for more updates in that regard.
Thank you. So we'll come back to Ms. Charles for this question and then go through everyone again. If your application is compared to someone who has relatively the same extracurricular experience as you, will one of you be considered over the other? And if one of you has a great test score and the other one doesn't?
So I want to start by saying that in our application process, we're never looking at one student and the other and saying, oh, we only have one space, who's it going to be? And almost like making the students fight it out. It really is that holistic review that allows us to look at each individual student in the context in which they're coming from. So if we see a student who doesn't have their test scores, we're still saying, okay, what are the recommendation letters saying about them? What does their high school transcript look like? How have they been doing academically, and how will they do academically on our campus? What activities have they been involved in? How have they been a part of their community? And looking to see what their essays are saying. How are they talking about themselves and about their experiences? And how do I feel like they'll fit into our social culture on our campus? How do I think they're going to contribute in new and positive and exciting ways to our student body? And then go to the next student and say, oh, they have test scores. These test scores fall within our middle 50, or these test scores fall above or below, and this is how I view it in context with their transcript. So it is really looking at each individual person as an individual person to make that final decision. Just because we know that all of our students are coming from very different backgrounds. And so we're not going to compare apples to oranges.
Thank you so much. Ms. Brown, can you tell us a little bit about how that would work at Northeastern?
Yeah, I think Bree summed it up really well. It isn't really just a one versus the other. I think you also have to keep in mind that we are looking at the context of the student really closely. So say you and student X are from different schools, you have similar activities, one of you submits test scores, but maybe the student who doesn't submit test scores has something else going on in their life, or the other student is taking really rigorous courses. I think you can't really just narrow it down to one or two things that's going to make you pick one student over the other. So I would be saying, you know, what if the student, you know, has great experiences, has great test scores, but terrible grades? You know, like, what does that mean to us? So again, it really is looking at all of those pieces of the puzzle. No two kids are ever going to be exactly the same. At some point, it is subjective, you know, like, we're not robots. There's a reason people do this job. So if one person is super into horses, and we've already admitted like 1,500 horseback riders, which is not a real thing, we may say, okay, we're going to take the kid that's more interested in robotics just for some, you know, diversity and interest level. But really, it's not going to come down to who has a better activity than another person. It's really so much more than that.
Thank you so much. Ms. Chernia, can you tell us a little bit about how that would work at Dickinson?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I emphatically support what Ms. Charles said. I think that hits the nail on the head exactly, especially at Dickinson. And then just the other thing that I would add to that is, I mean, in thinking back on how I review applications, I will be completely honest with you. I glance at the test score. Like, I will spend a few seconds on it. I am far more interested in other elements of your application. So exactly, also, as Northeastern said, we're looking at a whole lot of different elements. And so it really, yeah, it's not that direct comparison. And like I said, I'm looking at the test score for a few seconds. I'm spending way more time on other elements of your application.
Great, thank you so much. And Mr. Cruz, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a good question. I think that with our, definitely echo what all my colleagues have shared. You know, the test score doesn't really define your application overall. At least with us, it's not necessarily like a crucial factor for you to have. The main thing that we're looking for is seeing your academic, what you had done academically from 9th to 12th grade, and what grades you have received from 9th to 11th grade. With us specifically, we review by major. So all our applications are reviewed strictly by major. So if you get an offer to Virginia Tech, you're directly going to the major that you apply into. And so because of that, you know, we had to review each student based on their school profile. And what that means is that we're not going to be comparing you to students who are applying from different schools. We understand that each individual high school or even school district sees GPA differently. There's different courses that are available to you. And process is as accessible as possible to everyone. It doesn't put anyone at disadvantage just because, you know, your school district or your high school does not offer dual enrollment courses, for example. So when it comes to test courses specifically, average.
Thank you so much. So I also want to shout out something that Ms. Brown said from Northeastern. She said, also we'll add that when we read files, we do not see scores. We are just looking at the application, just in case anyone hasn't seen the chat. So our next question, and again, we'll start with Ms. Charles, is what activities are recommended to do in order to be accepted into these universities?
Activities that are meaningful to you. My senior year, I started a Wilderness Explorers Club because I had nowhere on my application that I was interested in the outdoors. And I, as a person, am not interested in the outdoors. But I wanted to diversify my activities. And so what I did is I took on a lot of extra and unnecessary stress during my senior year to pull off having a club, starting it, running it, and it was not worth it. And it was not the thing that made me stand out on an application. Instead, what made me stand out are the ways that I really invested in the arts by not only being involved in theater, but running student theater groups, and the ways that I was involved in sports and my consistent, meaningful involvements that I was then able to talk about really knowledgeably because they were what I did and what I enjoyed and what I loved. So let us know about the things that you actually care about. And on the Common Application, if you're applying to Common App schools, it asks you to list up to like 12 or so different activities. You don't need to fill in all of the blanks. If you have 5 activities that you love and that you care about, do that. But at the end of the day, like dog walking is not, for your family, is not an activity. If you have it as a business, that's different. But if you're just trying to come up with ways to fill out all 12 spots, we can tell, and it's not your best look.
Okay, and we will move to Ms. Brown to answer the question about the recommended activities in order to get accepted into Northeastern.
Again, just a big re-emphasis of everything Bree just said. We are looking to fill our college campuses with people that care about a lot of different things and are going to be involved. So whether for you that means you are the student body president and you are the captain of whatever and you are the leader of this, leader of that, or if it means you work 20 hours a week at a general store after school to help pay for whatever. Tell us that too. It's again really about that context. So we know that not every student has the opportunity or the funding or the time to participate in crazy extracurriculars. So if you're spending your evenings taking care of your younger siblings, let us know that. That's a value to us as well. And so kind of like what Bree's saying, you don't have to fill out all of those sections, especially like if you're in 8 honor societies, just put them in one line. But also be thinking about, altar serving in a church or spending time at the community center. Like if you're involved in some kind of programming there, that's what we care about too. And we understand that if you are working 20 hours a week or taking care of 3 younger siblings, you're not going to have time to be on a travel soccer team. We totally get that.
Thank you. And Ms. Chernia, is anything different at Dickinson in regards to what extracurriculars people should be doing?
No, I love both of those answers. They're excellent. It really just does come down to what's meaningful. What are you passionate about? That's what we want to see. I just one piece of advice for when you are adding in those activities, exactly as GW said, just like walking the dog, not an activity. But the other thing that's really, really helpful is if you don't use any acronyms or you spell out acronyms. I'll have students that will say, I'm the president of the AXYZP club in the BDC conference, and you're like, what is that? I don't know what that is. So that's when it gets tough. So definitely provide those details for us, because it's very possible that we don't know what you're involved in. But aside from that, we just care to see what you're passionate about.
Thank you. And Mr. Cruz, is there anything at Virginia Tech, any program or any extracurriculars that students should be doing if they want to get in, or that will help them get in?
Not necessarily. Again, just going to echo what everyone else has shared in the past, in the past few minutes. Again, it's just making sure that you are involved in your community, whether that is in your high school, whether that is at home, or your community based on where you live. We're just trying to see students be engaged and be able to participate in things that they're passionate about or things that they're interested in.
Great, thank you. So our next question is it weighted differently if you submit an application early decision versus regular decision? So again, we'll start with Ms. Charles.
So this is definitely going to be one of those questions where the answer is going to be different at every school that you talk to. So for all of the schools that are on your college list, ask them this question. That way you can understand what early decision and regular decision and early action and all of those different terms mean at each individual institution. But early decision is a term that usually means that it is you saying, I am committing to an institution, I love them so much, I'm going to apply earlier than everyone else, and I'm going to say I love them, and if I'm admitted, I am attending in the fall. And that's what we take it to mean at GW. So our acceptance rate for early decision students is a little bit higher than it is for regular decision students, because we recognize the fact that students applying early are self-selecting that they are a good fit. They have the right GW attitude in a sense, like they love the school, and we recognize that. So they're really great fits, and that's why the acceptance rate is a little bit higher. But overall, we take 2/3 of our class from our regular decision pool. Which means your odds of getting in overall are about the same. And so this is, again, where it gets into, it depends at each university. So we love our early decision students, we love our regular decision students, and we recognize that not everybody is ready to say raise high for GW in December, in the same way that some students also want to see what their financial aid packages are going to look like across the board. It doesn't mean they love us less, it just means that they need to know what their financial options are, and we support and recognize that, which is why we take such a big amount of our students from our regular decision pool. So both options are great options, but both require that you talk about it with your family, with your financial stakeholders, and with your college counselor. With early decision, we actually require you to sign a document with yourself, parent, legal guardian, and college counselor saying that you know the decision that you're making it early, and you're committing to coming to our school if admitted.
I want to just bounce off of that question a little bit. Will students not be considered for any kind of financial aid package if they apply early decision?
So they will still be considered for financial aid, they'll still be considered for merit scholarships, but the difference is with regular decision, it's not commitment when you apply. It's not binding. And so you have the month and the few weeks to make your decision before the May 1st national deposit deadline. With early decision, you're saying, no matter what happens, I'm coming in the fall. So you're admitted and you submit your deposit the next day, essentially. So you'll still have that financial aid package, and at GW, if you submit your financial aid forms at the same timeline that you apply to us, you'll have your financial aid package that same evening that you find out your decision. So you'll have all of the tools and materials, but with early decision, there's no wiggle room where there is with regular.
Great, thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Ms. Brown with Northeastern. Can you tell us a little bit about how early decision versus regular decision is weighed in the application process?
Sure. So similar again to GW, you're going to see this a lot. We do a lot of work with GW and a few other schools. For us, it is also about a fourth or a third of our incoming class that comes in through early decision. And we actually have two different early decision options. We have early decision 1, which is a traditional deadline of November 1st. You find out in December, early January. But then we have early decision 2. So if you want your first semester grades from your senior year to be considered in your early decision final, or if you're not quite ready to commit, or you think you might have a better sense of your finances. So in those two pools alone, it's still that small percentage. Most of our students apply to us early action, which is the same timeline. It's just not binding, so you can still have time to consider and look at other options, or regular decision, which is just a little bit later on. Again, with us, the acceptance rate for early decision is slightly higher for the similar reasons that Bree has mentioned. But we also know that it's not necessarily the right fit for everyone. And our general advice is apply when you feel like you're putting your best foot forward. That's when we want to see your application. And to reiterate, if you're thinking of ED, social, financial, academic fit, if you cannot definitively check off those 3 boxes, reconsider your early decision application. But again, do ask every school. There are some schools out there that take more than half of their incoming classes early decision. And that's something that you should certainly consider when you're looking at your college.
Thank you. And Ms. Chernia, can you talk a little bit about early decision at Dickinson versus regular decision?
Yeah, so a lot of the big points coming from GW and Northeastern are going to be the same at Dickinson as well. So a solid number of our students every year will come from the early decision pools, but the majority of our students are coming from regular decision. So Dickinson only has 2 early decision deadlines, because we understand the first one might be a little too early for some, but we do have students who later on decide, yes, Dickinson is my number 1, this is where I want to be. So we like having that early decision 2 option. We do not have early action, and then after that, it's just regular decision. For students who are applying early decision, like I said, it's because they know Dickinson is where they want to be. They are identifying, saying, you guys are my number 1, how do you feel about me? So the review process, it is a little bit different than I would say regular decision, just because the application pool is substantially smaller than our regular decision pool. But basically everything else will stay the same. You would be considered for the same merit scholarships, the same financial aid package as you would in regular decision. There's no harm, no foul when it comes to applying early decision with that. And I also really like Dickinson does have some resources for students who are considering applying early decision to make those finances a little bit more transparent. So that's something that you would work with your admissions counselor on. If you do your research, you decide Dickinson is the place for you, connect with me about that and we can have a more in-depth conversation. But I do like we have those tools and resources again to make early decisions seem a little less scary.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Cruz, can you talk to us a little bit about regular decision versus early decision at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so at Virginia Tech, we offer 3 different deadlines. The first one being early decision, which is binding. And so around probably 13% of our total applicant pool is selected from early decision, which the deadline is November 1st. Next up, we do have early action. And the deadline for that is December 1st. And in my opinion, early action is a win-win situation. And the reason why I say that is because if you apply early action, not only are you not, it's non-binding, so you have until that May 1st deadline to really decide whether or not Virginia Tech is a school for you. And 2, when you apply early action, when you receive your offer package in mid-February, not only are you receiving your offer letter, but you also receive your most up-to-date financial aid and scholarship award package with that offer package overall. And with early action, that's where we get most of our, that's where we select most of our applicants. Around 80% of total student population for the incoming class is selected for early action. Regular decision at Virginia Tech is a little bit different. With regular decision, it is based on if we have any space available. So you will see around 7 to 5% of total student applicant pool be selected for a regular decision. So if you're truly considering Virginia Tech as as an option, please do not apply a regular decision because, if you're applied to one of those popular majors, you're most likely to be waitlisted because we do not have any space available.
And what are those popular majors at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, so anything from engineering to architecture to business to biological sciences, psychology. We do have a healthy amount of majors that typically don't have any spaces available. If you look at pre-med, med tracks, pre-law, those are some of the majors. So it really varies every year. There isn't these are the least popular majors that you can get into a regular decision. But it really depends on how many applicants we get per each major, since we review specifically by major at Tech.
Great, thank you so much. So our next question is, how important is it if you're coming from a private or a public school? And again, we'll start with Ms. Charles.
So I'm actually going to reverse the order a little bit because I have a feeling that we're all going to say pretty similar things. But I feel bad for Mr. Cruz because I feel like he's always the last to go. So if you want to start with this one, and we can maybe do a little reverse.
Sure, we'll go that way now.
For us, it's not really that important. Again, we review by school profile. We are not going to compare what opportunities you had if you went to a public school versus someone who went to a private school. We understand the curriculum varies based on your school district, the school that you attend to. So it's not something that is going to be held against you in the review process.
Okay, if it's any different at another school, do you guys want to touch on that? Or if it's the same, then maybe we can move on to the next question.
Same for us.
Okay. Is it the same for Dickinson and GW as well?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So we will move on to the next question. Should we specify the major for the first year, or can we decide on a later date? Let's start with Mr. Cruz again.
Yeah. So with Virginia Tech, you'll be applying directly into your major. So you need to have that decision made before you apply to Virginia Tech. We do have undecided tracks that you can select and apply into. Unfortunately, there's a misconception that if you apply as undecided to Virginia Tech, it is a lot easier to get into, but in reality, it tends to be a lot harder. Again, it all comes down to how many spaces we do have available. So for us, we strongly recommend that you apply into a major directly. And if by any reason that major is not applied to you afterwards, you do have the possibility to transfer to another major with another college or within the same college later on. Just keep in mind that at Virginia Tech, we do have some restricted majors that you can only apply into those majors as a first-year student.
Great, thank you. We will move on to Ms. Chernia now.
Yeah, so students can indicate like a first choice major on their application, but it really doesn't mean much because when you're applying to Dickinson, you're applying to Dickinson. You're not applying to a specific program or anything like that. So a good number of our students do come in as undecided, or of course they change their major. That is all good with us. We have no restricted programs or anything that does require a student to declare it in the first year.
Thank you. And Ms. Brown?
Yeah, so similar to actually Dickinson, which I think is maybe less common for a larger research institution, you are applying to Northeastern as a whole. So we have 7 different colleges and an 8th undeclared program. So you will indicate which one you are considering or most interested in when you're admitted to Northeastern, you're admitted into that college. But I could apply today and say, I want to be a math major, and I can email my admissions counselor tomorrow and say, just kidding, I want to be fine art. And then I get admitted into fine art, and I can say, actually, you know what, I'm thinking engineering, and I could switch it to engineering then. So we are super, super flexible, and you have until really the end of your second year to declare a major. And our undecided program is truly for students who have no idea what they want to do. There's not a cap on it, and it is some guided mentorship. So we do suggest that you apply kind of with your gut of what you think. If you're more than 50% sure that major is it for you, go with that one. But there's a lot of flexibility along the way for you to be able to change. And we certainly see students taking advantage of that flexibility and exploring a lot of different options.
And is there a difference in the acceptance rate, like of a student who applies with a particular major versus a student who doesn't?
Yes, so we actually don't break down those acceptance rates, and it does change year to year based on how many students we see coming into the program. So yeah, some of our, like the Corey College of Computer Science, that might be a little bit more competitive this year. It was pretty competitive last year, and we've seen that trend going. But we actually have admitted the most number of students into our computer science program, so it really just kind of boils down to where students are interested. And we can also kind of tell, if you are saying, I'm going to apply as a drama major, but everything in your app is about computer science, you have nothing with drama, and you're just trying to kind of sneak around, like we can see that, and it's not going to do you any good, and you're taking that spot away from maybe someone who would have really wanted to be deeply involved with the arts. So we do just recommend it, but there is no significant difference in the different colleges since we are just looking at you as a whole.
Great, thank you. Now, Ms. Charles, will you tell us a little bit about that at GW?
Of course. So we have 7 different schools and colleges at GW, and you apply into one of them as your primary, and then you can put an alternate there as well if you want to show that you have interest in multiple things. It's up to you. The way that I kind of view it is, especially in the context of something like engineering, where we do want to see that you've taken those math and science courses to start engineering on a really strong footing. So you apply to engineering, but maybe you haven't taken those math and science classes, and your alternate school is business. We might admit you into business, and then later, once you're at GW, you can take the courses you need to then enter into our engineering school. So you apply into one of our 7 schools, and each one of those schools, except for our Corcoran School of Art and Design, has an undecided major within it. So you'll say what school you're applying into and then what major. And it's totally okay if that major is undecided. We have built out programs for undecided students within those majors to just help them find what they're most interested in, how they can complete their path at GW. So for us, it doesn't really matter. As Kate was just saying, apply to your strengths. If you are math and science heavy, it definitely makes sense for you to go into a math and science heavy field. If that's not what you're interested in, that's totally fine. But I always recommend applying and playing to your strengths.
And will it be difficult, like if a student starts a major and then decides they want to really shift gears, will they be able to switch into a different school?
For the most part. So we allow students to have double majors across schools and minors across schools and all of those things. It usually is really possible. I think engineering is the one exception usually if you're trying to transfer into engineering as like a second semester sophomore. It's going to be a little bit harder, and you'll probably have to take some summer courses because it is a more strict discipline in terms of when you take what classes. But outside of engineering, you're good to go. The way I like to think about it is each major at GW is about 60 credits worth, and you need 120 credits to graduate. So you'll declare a major by the end of your sophomore year at the latest. You can declare it your first semester on campus if you want, but by the end of that second year, and you'll be good to go.
Great, thank you so much. Are there any more, does anyone else have questions? If you do, please type them in the chat box. Okay, if not, I'll ask a question about the application. So if there is a supplemental essay question or other question that a student has the opportunity to answer, would you recommend that they answer it, and how much would it affect their chance of getting it or the review of that application? We can start with you, Ms. Charles.
So we have an optional supplemental essay, and I always tell students it's optional, but we're asking the question for a reason, and it's a really good look if you fill out that essay because it gives us more context as to who you are. And so we're always looking for like reasons to fight for our students and to say, yes, they should be admitted, and here's why. Here's what I love about this student. Here's why I care so much about them. So completing that supplemental essay or those supplemental questions gives us that fighting power and lets us know more about you, gives us additional insight, and it also shows that you're taking the time to really invest in our specific application. It shows that you're not just applying to 20 schools in the Common App. You can only apply to 20 schools through Common App, but it's saying that I'm really taking the time to look at the school and intentionally submit my application. So I always recommend you do it. It's a little bit more work, but the Common App is already open if you're a current high school senior, so you can start working on those now.
Okay, Ms. Brown, can you tell us a little bit about that at Northeastern?
Sure, super easy answer. We have no supplement. Woo! Yeah, so it's not a trick. There's nothing there. I sometimes get students emailing me. There is no supplement. Now, that said, if you have this burning desire to submit us a few sentences about why you love Northeastern, or send us a clipping from a newspaper where you won an award, or a picture that you drew, you are welcome to. We by no means expect it. It's not one of those hidden tricks where we really want you to send something extra. You definitely do not have to, but we have no written supplement. I actually have a presentation starting in about 5 minutes for one of a different high school that I work with, so I have to hop off, but I will post my email in the chat for everyone. Please feel free to reach out to me. And just to clarify, my name is Kate, but my email is Kat. It's not a typo, just very close together. Thank you so much, Tina. Sorry, I have to step off a couple minutes early, but good luck with the rest of the presentation.
No problem. Thank you for joining us. Okay, we can move on to Ms. Chernia. Can you tell us a little bit about how it would work for a student at Dickinson with a supplemental question?
Yep, so another easy answer, we also don't have a supplement, but I like everything W said, and I think Virginia Tech also does have a supplement, and I'm sure I'm going to like everything that Mr. Cruz says.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to you, Mr. Cruz. Can you tell us a little bit about a supplement at Virginia Tech?
So I'm going to tell you a whole different answer. With us, we don't necessarily look at supplement questions at all. We don't look at the Common App essay or the coalition essay. The only writing piece that we're looking for is the answers that you provide to the 4 short personal statements. That's the only part that's mandatory. Now you do have the opportunity to add any additional information if you wish to share that, but typically for that section, we're looking for additional information regarding your academics or misconduct or anything like that. Is nothing too crucial to complete if you don't have anything. But again, the only thing that we're looking for is those the answers to the 4 short person statements.
Great, thank you. So we actually have another question. What are the top 5 questions a student should ask themselves when looking at schools? And we can start with Ms. Charles again.
This is a great question. They've all been great questions, but I really like this one too. I think, what kind of person do I want to be when I leave college? I think is a really great question to start asking yourself. And it's okay to not know the answer, but asking it of the people that you see on the campus. I think getting to know the students that make up a university is so pivotal and so important in your process. So asking them, like, how have you grown while at this school? What parts of you have developed or matured? And have you enjoyed that process? I think are some really great questions to ask of yourself, thinking forward, but also of the students who have gone through or are going through it. I think another great question is very basic, but do they have what I'm interested in? I think sometimes students get all caught up in like, oh, I love this school because of its location and because of like this program, this one specific thing they have, like it's a student org and I love it. But they don't really look to make sure that they have the right major that the student is interested in pursuing. So making sure that they have a major that you're interested in or many majors that you might switch your mind in. Around 70%, I think, of first-year students change their mind about what they want to do. So making sure there's that space for flexibility. And then I'm going to do top 3 because I know everyone else will have some great answers too. But also financial feasibility. And really talking about finances. Is this going to be a school that works for me? Is this going to be a school where I'm going to be in debt for the next 40 plus years? Or is this going to be a school where I can graduate with no or very few loans taken out? And is that going to be a better post-grad experience? So really digging into what finances look like and having those conversations from the beginning as opposed to having it once you have your acceptance letters. Just to make sure that the schools that you're getting into are all, you at least have one school that is going to be a good financial fit.
Great, thank you. Ms. Chernia, can you tell us a little bit, or tell us the 5 questions, 3 to 5 questions that students should ask themselves when picking a school to apply to?
Yeah, so Ms. Charles definitely hit on the big ones that I really like as well. So I'm just going to piggyback on her answer. And I think by the time we'll have 5+ questions, by the time all the panelists are done. Just the one that I really want to add, though, is to think critically about what you value. And are you seeing your values reflected in the school that you want to attend? I think it's very easy, especially college search is a very noisy and crowded place. You're probably talking to your friends about things. They're sharing their opinions about schools. And I know it's very easy to get caught up in like, oh, well, my friend's going here. Like, I think I want to go there too. But I think taking a step back and again, looking at what you value, what matters to you, and then seeing that reflected in your school is just a real good way of making sure that there's a nice fit between you and the school that you pick.
Great, thank you. Mr. Cruz, can you tell us 3 to 5 questions that you think a student should ask themselves when picking a school to apply to?
Yeah, definitely. Bree touched on this earlier about finances. That happens to be a huge factor in your final decision making. Making sure that you have all the right information before you jump into making a final decision. You want to make sure that you're patient with the process and that you have all the information available before making that huge decision. One thing that I want to highlight is location, right? Location is very important. Some of you may want to, get away from your family for the next 4 years and may want to go to the West Coast, who knows, right? Other of you may want to stay closer to home, right? So, looking at, transportation-wise, how do you get to that place? Do they have an airport? Do they have train? Do they have buses? If someone can come and get you, picking you up by a car, or do you have your own car, right? So all those key questions on how you can get from one place to another is very important to take into consideration as well. And the last thing that I was going to say is making sure that hopefully the school that you're interested in is the right fit for you, and seeing whether they have key values that you hold, that are important to you, making sure that they have the right major or program for you, making sure that their community in that specific institution is a community that you want to be a part of. All of those are questions that you should definitely be looking into and exploring a little bit more when researching that specific institution.
Thank you. So our next question is, how do you support students after graduation? And let's start with Ms. Trimia this time.
Sure thing. Yeah. So we always like to say once a Dickinsonian, always a Dickinsonian. And I feel like my peers are going to say something similar. So yes, I mean, we absolutely do support students, after graduation, whether that's immediate or years down the road. And we even put it in the name of one of our centers. We have the Center for Advising, Internships, and Lifelong Career Development. So super long name, but I think it sums up what that office does really well. So you've got lifelong career development. So you can come back to us anytime you want. If you want to get some alumni connections, if you want resume review, we are here for you. We are definitely more than happy to help you with whatever you need. Use us as much or as little as you want.
Thank you. Ms. Charles, can you tell us a little bit about how GW supports students after graduation?
Of course. Similar sentiments. Once you're part of our family, you're always a part of our family and our community. I think a great example of that is our tangible location on our campus, where our office is. Our Welcome Center is called our Admissions and Alumni Welcome Center. So we really try and cover the whole circle there. And I think it's important for us that our alums are around, they're giving back. So it's not even how the university is supporting you after you graduate, but it's how your community is supporting our current students. Around 90,000 of our alums are in the DMV area. So when it comes to internships and such, our students have such great access to other people who know what GW is like. And then for our alums who do need any kind of support or resources, they can come back for pre-law advising, pre-health advising. They can come and use the library for research, and still have access to their professors that they studied under while they were students. So a lot of give and take, but you're definitely able to utilize the same university resources. I'm actually an alum of GW, and I still get emails from our Career Services Center with like, hey, you might be interested in this job, that job, or the other. And I always think it's so funny because I work for GW, so you're trying to poach me away from you, but career services are that good.
That's really cool. Thank you. Mr. Cruz, can you tell us a little bit about how Virginia Tech supports students after graduation?
Yeah, we, similar to everyone else's, we do have an excellent career center, the Smith Career Center, who does everything from making sure that you're well taken care of even after graduation. Even if you're like 30 years into your career and then you're suddenly looking for new opportunities, they will help you with keeping up with job searching trends, resume building, cover letter, all those wonderful things, or at least for some people, some stressful things, right? Job searching. But I think with us, we do have a very strong alumni networking opportunities. We have alumni chapters basically all over the country, from Seattle to Houston to Dallas to New York. So with our Career Center, definitely had those opportunities to support our students depending on what they want to do and where they want to go, geographically, which is something that, because of our motto being that I may serve, that UPROSM, our alumni are always more than welcome to lend a hand to fellow Hokies after graduation.
Thank you. And we have another question. So what do the classes look like at each school? And maybe you guys can talk a little bit about class size and student to faculty ratio. Do you want to start, Mr. Cruz?
Yeah, definitely. So our student faculty ratio right now stands at 14:1. In a traditional setting, I mean, typically during your first year when you're completing those general education courses, you'll be in large size classes. But as you go down deep into your specific major, the class size will become it will become less. So, you won't be stuck in a room with 100 people. It will be more so like, 15 to 20 students per classroom, very collaborative environment. However, I do want to acknowledge that for this upcoming year, because of COVID, we are taking steps into reducing our class sizes, and taking traditionally large classes and converting those large classes into medium-sized classes, and taking those traditionally medium-sized classes into smaller classes. We're also looking to host students in alternative classroom settings, so that we're able to accommodate and follow guidelines stated by the Health Department of the state of Virginia, and also following up with guidelines by the CDC. So.
Great, thank you. Ms. Charles, can you tell us a little bit about what classes look like at GW and the student to faculty ratio there?
Of course. So our average class size is 27 with a student to faculty ratio of 13:1. Average class size tends to be larger for first year students because you're taking all of those intro classes. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of people change their mind during their first year. So you're going to see people in your intro to psychology course who realize that psychology is not the right path for them. So they're going to switch into a different class after that. So those intro courses tend to be really large to gather in all of the students who are undecided and who aren't sure what they want their path to be. But we have all of our first year students do a university writing class, which is kept at 17, just to make sure that you are in some smaller courses during that first year in college as you make that transition. It's one of my favorite classes to talk about because we offer it in a plethora of different sections. So you can take it, I took mine on like the Holocaust, you can take it on fandoms, you can take it on The Bachelor, you can take it on craftivism, being an activist via crafting. You can also take it on politics and neuroscience. So there are so many different options because we want you to really be invested in this semester-long course that helps you develop a 30-page paper, as well as getting to know your professor. You're required to go to office hours. You're required to meet with librarians to help you learn about the different research opportunities at GW and how to use a library system and how to use all the online databases. So a lot of ways that we try and take those larger environments and make sure our students are in smaller classes. Similarly, if you are in a large 100+ person class, you'll be required to do a discussion section, which is capped at 20, to just go over the information, make sure that you really do get to know it. And again, put you in that smaller environment where you can ask questions freely without feeling like the entire room is staring at you.
Great, that sounds amazing. Thank you. Ms. Chernia, can you tell us a little bit about Dickinson and what class sizes look like in student to faculty ratio?
Yeah, so we are a smaller school with a very robust infrastructure. So our student to faculty ratio is 8:1. Our average class size is around 14 students. So we do see, some larger classes than those 14 students for our intro classes, like my peers said, when you're looking at intro to bio, intro to econ, those types of classes are typically a little bit bigger. I would say our classes, though, they're very discussion-based, very hands-on, and that's just one of the great things about those smaller classes. I know a lot of our faculty also like to use breakout groups, because we think it's important not only to learn from the professor, but to learn from your peers as well. So I actually love this story from one of our tour guides. He was sitting in a class, it was an international affairs class, and they were talking about some specific international event. And actually one of the students in the class, like him and his family lived through that event. So they got to have a very authentic, real conversation surrounding that event, which I think is a really cool experience. I think it just shows how much we can learn from each other. And that's definitely something that Dickinson values. Our professors are great, of course, about remembering their students. They're very friendly, they're very accessible. So even when you're walking around campus, you'll always see professors stop to talk to students, either they have in their class or maybe even former students. They truly never seem to forget a face or a name. So there really is a nice, exciting community that comes out of the Dickinson education experience.
Cool, thank you. So we have one more question before we wrap up. And then at the end of this question, I'll let you guys also maybe give any advice that you think we haven't covered through this session, or anything you think students overlook but should know. So the last question is, some people want to take a gap year because of COVID-19. Would it affect the number of applications accepted? We can start with you, Ms. Cherny.
Yeah, so I think, we probably all have been getting this question quite a bit. But I think really the good news and the short answer is no. So we do have, students that did, from this year, they did defer for a semester or for the year, but the number is actually not as big as you would think. And so I think a good thing to know, at least kind of how we're approaching this at Dickinson, is our focus isn't necessarily on hitting X number of students in a specific class. What we care more about is the total number of enrollment with the student body and making sure that we have the ability to accommodate all of that. So we're not opposed to taking in a bigger class if the college can accommodate it. So at this time, we are not predicting any sort of dramatic decrease in our acceptance rate or things getting harder. We understand that times have changed. So I would say for us, things are staying pretty consistent.
And do you have any advice that you want to leave us with before we wrap up?
Let me think on that. I'll come back to it. I'll list the other two top first.
Okay. Mr. Cruz, I'll come to you next. Can you tell us a little bit about how the application process will be affected because of people taking a gap year with COVID?
Yeah, so a little fun fact about Virginia Tech. Last year, we actually over-enrolled by quite a lot, and it was a big talk in the state of Virginia. And so I don't foresee students deferring this year being a huge factor when it comes to impacting the class size for the upcoming academic school year. My one tip would be just be patient, trust the process, don't feel like you need to rush into things, making sure that whatever information you're putting out there is as accurate as accurate as possible and it's representative of who you are. You want to make sure that you put your best work forward. So that would be my tip.
Thank you so much. That was great advice. Ms. Charles, can you tell us a little bit about how COVID is affecting applications at GW and also any advice you want to leave us with?
Yeah, so similarly, we don't anticipate it impacting what admissions looks like for this next cycle. That being said, we didn't anticipate this time last year being in the middle of a global pandemic. So take that with a grain of salt. But right now, as Rebecca was saying, we haven't seen this wild surge in deferrals or students who were admitted and want to take the semester or a full year off or anything like that. It's been higher than in years past, but not anything that's crazy or out of control. So we think that students will just continue to apply and we will continue to admit. And that is our goal. That is our job. So we're excited for what the next year brings. And I think in terms of advice, the piece of advice I usually give out is to use your resources and start to understand what and who your resources are. So use websites for all the different universities to get a sense of what their interests are, what their values are. You can tell a lot about a university based off of who they put on their website, what kinds of information they give you. Look at their COVID websites. How are they responding to a pandemic? And then take the next step. Talk to admissions counselors. Say, hey, I have questions about X, Y, Z. Do it early on in the process where you can then say, okay, this was really helpful for you to know. This is not the school for me. And now you don't even have to worry about submitting that application or filling out their essays because you know that it's not a good fit. Use your family members. Oftentimes our families know us really, really well. And so when we're stuck and we're like, I'm not really sure, and we can't get good perspective because we're in the middle of it, your family member might say, wait a minute, but you really don't like using public transportation and you will only be able to use public transportation at that school. And maybe for you, that's the deal breaker. So just those little perspectives that other people can bring into your life as they're your resources. Maybe it's your teacher or your counselor. Maybe it's someone from your community who can just say, hey, I went to this school and this is what I loved and hated about it. And give you different ideas. And then last, as I said before, students. Talk to students at all of these different schools that you're interested in. This pandemic has been really interesting in how all these universities have been handling it because there are now all of these online resources. You do not have to leave your bedroom and you can talk to students, you can talk to faculty. People have been giving weird access because they understand that this is something new and something different to navigate. So utilize that. talk to students, get their perspective, and really have them help you with this decision. They're going to be honest. That's what they are. They're college students. They want to be honest. They want you to make good choices in terms of where you're going to spend the next 4 year, and they have opinions. So listen to them. And so then in the chat, I'm also putting in my email, so you can use me as a resource, but then also a form where if you want to learn more about GW, I use GW as a resource, and you'll have information about that. But that's my advice.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to come back to Ms. Chernia for her advice that she wants to leave us with before we finish.
Yeah, so I mean, I love everything that, you know, was asked in the chat, all the questions. You guys are thinking of the right things. I think just kind of one of the things I want to go back to emphasize is just the importance of authenticity. So as long as you are being true to yourself on the college application, it's going to all work out. Once you start trying to play games or put down what you think admission counselors want to see, you lost. It's not going to result in the outcome that you want. So like I said, just be authentic, be true to yourself, and it's going to be great.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys all for joining us. I, as a rising senior, have definitely learned a lot, and this will be very helpful to me in my application process. I hope that everyone who attended also learned a lot today. Thank you, Ms. Chernia, Ms. Charles, and Mr. Cruz for being with us today. I really appreciate this, and it was a lot of great information. So I will, okay, all of the admissions officers have actually put in their contact information in the chat. So if anyone wants to look at that, I will keep this call on just for a little bit longer so you guys can get that information. So thank you all for coming. That's it.
Thank you, Tina. This was great.
Thank you.
Thanks for organizing it.
Has everyone who wanted to get the admissions officers' information gotten their information? Great. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to end the meeting now.